Let's go to exercise 1 through 3. The directions tell us to convert the decimal division expressions to fractional division expressions in order to create whole number divisors. You do not need to find the quotients. Explain the movement of the decimal point. The first exercise has been completed for you. So we're trying to go through the first stages of dividing decimal by a decimal. And the key is the divisor. The divisor cannot be a decimal. We got to make that a whole number before we actually start dividing. So what we did here is we rewrote that as a fraction. To get that 2.3 as a whole number, we multiplied it by 10, and what that does is move that decimal point one place to the right, and now we have a new divisor of 23. Whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do the same exact thing to the top. So we multiply that by 10, that moves it one place to the right, and we get 186. We then get a new division expression of 186 divided by 23. We could solve that and get the same answer as what our original problem is. We don't have to divide it all out in these exercises, so we're going to go on. Let's look at number 2. It says 14.04 divided by 4.68. I'm going to rewrite that as a fraction. And notice I have a divisor down here. That's a decimal. That's not allowed. We have to get that to be a whole number. Well, I can't just multiply it by 10 at this time. That only moves it one place to the right. And that still would leave me with a decimal as a divisor. So this time I need to move it two places to the right. So I'm going to multiply it by 100. That gives me a new denominator or new divisor of 468. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the same thing to the top. That moves that decimal point two places to the right, and we get 1,404. That creates us a whole new division problem of 1,404 divided by 468. Once we divide that problem, we'll get the same answer as the original division problem. Let's try this last one here. I like to write them as fractions so I can see them on top of one another. This time I have to multiply the denominator by 1,000 because I got to move that three places to the right. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the same exact thing to the top. That gives me a new problem of 162 over 36, which means 162 divided by 36. We can divide that out using our algorithm and get the same exact answer as our original problem. Now I want to point one more thing out before we end this little video clip here. What if I have a problem like this? 16.687, and we're going to divide it by 3.4. If I rewrite that as a division problem, as a fraction, it looks like this. I cannot have this denominator, or this divisor, a decimal. So I'm going to multiply it by 10. That moves it one place to the right, giving me 34. Here's the key. I got to do the same exact thing to the top number. I can only multiply it by 10, moving that decimal point one place to the right. The results are 166.87 divided by 34. It's okay to have a decimal as your first number, your dividend. You cannot have a decimal as your divisor. So that would be an example of where we only move at this, where we get a dividend as a decimal. Another example that you might want to be aware of, I'm just making these numbers up. What if we get 3.2? Actually, let's make it 13.2, and let's divide it by 4.32. Rewriting that as a fraction, we have to multiply this denominator by 100, moving it 2 places to the right, giving us 432. Whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do to the top. That's going to move that decimal point 2 places to the right, resulting in an empty space, which we're going to fill in with zeros, so that we would have a new division statement of 1,320 divided by 432. The key when dividing decimal, when you're setting up your division problem of decimals, it's the divisor that has to be the whole number. And whatever you do to that divisor, you also have to do to the dividend.